All right, IM1 classes. Today we're talking about angle bisectors and angle addition. So we briefly talked about what a bisector is before. Today we're going to get into it a little bit more in depth, but a bisector is something that cuts something directly in half. And then we're talking about angle addition. Angle addition is pretty much the same thing as segment addition, except for we're working with angles instead of segments. So with segments, you just add together to find the length of a longer segment. Today we're adding two angles together to find the measure of a bigger angle. All right. Before we get into angle bisectors, we need to talk about a little vocabulary. This word congruent. So congruent means, or I should say, when figures, geometric figures, are the same size and shape or measure, we say they are congruent. It basically means equal. We just use it in different situations. So when you hear congruent, you think equal. All right. So for example, congruent segments have equal, they're the same length. All right. The symbol that we use for congruent is an equal sign with a little wavy thing on top of it. That means congruent. All right. When we're looking at diagrams, because with diagrams, it's very important that we keep track of things. We mark congruent segments with little tick marks. So if I mark this because segment AB is congruent to segment CD, we mark it with just a little tick mark. When you see that in a diagram, that means those segments are congruent. So like down here, if you have more than one set of congruent figures in a diagram, so like EF is congruent to GH, these are congruent, but they're not congruent to these segments up there. You would still mark them, but you'd mark it with two tick marks to show that these are congruent to each other, but not congruent to that. So these diagrams, these marks are very important because they tell us what is equal when you're looking at these shapes. For angles, so again, the congruent symbol, so these two angles are congruent to each other. What you do is you put little congruent arcs, these arcs in there, that means those angles are congruent. If it's, like the other ones, if you have more than one set of congruent figures in a diagram, you would mark them with just more arcs. So mark it with two arcs to show that these two are congruent to each other, but not congruent to the two up here. All right, so again, congruent means the same. Congruent means equal. All right, so let's talk about this. So an angle blank is a ray that divides an angle into two angles that have both the same measure. So this is an angle bisector. All right, a bisector divides an angle into two congruent angles. All right, so it divides them right in half. All right, cuts it in half. So anything, if it bisects it, we're saying it cuts in half, makes two congruent parts or two equal parts. All right, so an angle bisector. So let's look at an example of this. So the ray FH, so ray FH is this ray coming in the middle here, bisects EFG. So this arc here is telling us that the whole angle, measure of angle EFG is 120 degrees. So measure of angle EFG is 120. All right. What this bisector does, it cuts into two congruent pieces. So I'm going to put in congruency arcs in here. Guess they don't need to be perfect, but looks nice. So that two congruent parts. So basically it's just cutting the angle in half. All right. So what if this bisector cuts these angles in half? What do these two angles have to be? Well, half of 120 is 60. So that's going to be 60 each. So EFH is 60 and HFG is 60. All right. So this one here, so ray QS is an angle bisector of angle PQR. So that means the ray QS is cutting the big angle into two congruent parts, two equal parts. So I'm going to put in my congruency tick marks. So this is saying that PQS is 40 degrees. So PQS is 40. All right. That means this one down here also is 40 degrees. So that's SQR. That's down here, SQR. And then both angles together, PQR would then have to be 80 degrees. Put those together. All right, let's look at this one. So again, the bisector is cutting PQR in half. This is telling us, this arc is telling us that 64 degrees is for the whole angle, PQR. So that is 64. I can write that better. Maybe not. What is going on? There we go. All right, 64. So that cuts this in half. Half of 64 is 32. So that means each of these needs to be 32. So PQS is 32. SQR is 32. There's that. So bisectors cut things in half. Let's move on. Talk about angle addition. So angle addition, just like segment addition, it's going to be very important that you label the diagrams here because it's going to be very helpful to determine the angle measures. So let's write this out. So measure of angle YLM is 120 degrees. So Y to L to M is 120. And then KLY is 50 degrees. So angle addition just means that we can add those angles together. That's simple. So we are trying to find out the measure of the whole thing. So K to L to M, the whole measure together. I know that looks like a mess with all that, but everything together, you just add it here. 120 plus 50 is 170. So KLM is 170. All right. So here, let's look at the next one. Measure of angle RSL is 52 degrees. So let's label things. So RSL, I'll underline it here, RSL 52. RST, so RST is the whole angle together. That's 112. All right, so if this is 52, and both these angles together is 112, what's this leftover angle? All right, to figure that part out, all you need to do is you can just subtract them. 112 minus 52 is equal to 60 degrees. So that leftover angle here, LST, is 60 degrees. 52 plus 60 is 112. All right. So let's, So DEF. Oh, do that one first. So DEF is the whole angle together from D to E to F, or D to E to F. So the whole thing is 162. All right. QEF, Q to E to F is just 140. So if this is 140, the whole thing is 160. What's this little part left over to get it to 160? That's going to be 22. Do 160 minus 140 is 22. All right. Last thing we're going to talk about, just like what we did with segment addition, we're going to add some simple algebra to this. All right. So Find X if HGF is 142 degrees. So HGF, H to G to F is the whole angle is 142 degrees. So put that out here. That's for the whole angle, all right? BGF, so BGF is X plus 80. And then HGB is 78 plus X. So that's going to be here, 78 plus X. So just like segment additions, you add the two parts together to get the whole thing. So the two parts together, so the two parts is going to be X plus 80 plus 78 plus X. And that is going to be equal to the whole thing of 142. And then all you need to do is solve for X. So combine like terms, we have X plus an X is 2X. 80 plus 78 is 158. Solve for X, get it by itself. So I'm going to subtract 158 from both sides. So plus 158 minus 158 cancels out. 2X is equal to 142 minus 158 is negative 16. And then divide by 2, you get X is equal to negative 8. Next example. Find X if KHG is 38. So KHG is this angle up here. So I'm going to KHG, K to H to G is 38. IHG, IHG, that's the whole angle. The whole angle is 18x minus 4. And then this last one, IHK. IHK is 10x plus 6. So add the two smaller parts together to equal the whole. So the first part is 38. The other part, smaller part, is 10x plus 6. And that's equal to 18x minus 4. So add the two smaller parts together to equal the whole. Now to solve for this, I'm going to simplify this side. I'm going to combine these. The 38 plus 6 is 44. Plus 10x is equal to 18x. I want the x's on the same side of the equal sign. So I'm going to eliminate this 10x. I'm going to subtract 10x from both sides. Since this is the 10 is smaller than the 18, if I subtract 10x, I'll keep things positive. So you get 44 is equal to 8x minus 4. And then get x by itself. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. You get 48 is equal to 8x. Divide by 8. You get 6. 48 divided by 8 is 6. So x is 6. One last problem. All right. So label the angles. FGZ is 33x. So FGZ is this angle up here. So that's 33x. FGH is 126. So is the whole angle together. So that's going to be 126 degrees. Don't know how that happened. 126. And then that means this last one, the ZGH. ZGH is -2 plus 31x. Add the two smaller parts together to get the whole. So it's going to be 33x plus -2 plus 31x is equal to 126. Now we can solve for x. First thing I'm going to do is simplify things on the left side here. So 33 plus 31 is 64. Oh, sorry. That's a 126, not 128. Plus and -2 is the same thing as -2. So I'm just going to switch that to -2 right there. Now I need to add 2 to both sides. That cancels out. I get 64x is equal to 128. And then divide both sides by 64. And I get x is equal to 2. And we are done. All right. So finish up the assignment on Edge Elastic. Make sure you email me with any questions, and we'll see you guys next time.